Hey, hi there. So this is still December, it's still winter time, and we have another 1.5 months of winter season to go. And this is a time for some wonderful fragrances, especially evening wear fragrances that bring out some amount of romance out of you, right? So I'm talking about a very beautiful fragrance for this particular season. This is called the Dolce & Gabbana The One. Right now, this is a wonderful fragrance, especially for this time, because mostly this is considered as a very good option for date night fragrances. Right, when you think about the top 3, top 5 date night fragrances, Dolce & Gabbana The One is definitely one of them. Right, so today on this particular video, we're going to talk about the Dolce & Gabbana The One, and we're going to talk about its scent profile, projection and performance, and then compare it with 3 other alts that we have for this. Okay, so we have Pendora's Dreamcatcher. This has been one of those alts that has been there for a longest time, and it's a really good alt as well. So we will compare this, and then we have the very new Albait, the one which is also very popular. I have spoken about this in my Albait videos as well, so we're going to compare with this. Then of course I have one from Muzna fragrances. This is also another beautiful alt, and we're going to talk about all 3 of them on their scent profiles, projection and performance right after this intro. You're watching the Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney, and let's get started. Alright, welcome back. So this particular fragrance, the Dolce & Gabbana The One, this was launched in the year 2008. That was the EDT version that came out, and the perfumer is Oliver Pohl. Now he was the one who kind of created this particular fragrances. Among the lot of creations that he has, this is one of his masterpiece works. Now this particular flanker that you see is the EDP version, and this came out in the year 2015. Now one way to identify between the two, while the bottle design remains the same, one way to differentiate is this dark black brown color, coloring that you see, or the shading that you see, is the EDP version, and the EDT is more plain, just a plain flanker, right? Now aside to these 2 versions, which is the EDP and EDT, there are other flankers as well, such as the Only One, the Luminous Night, and another one which is in a red color as well. So there are quite a few variations. I think the red one is more of a Middle Eastern type, so that have been built across this particular DNA, right? Now this particular fragrance that you see, this is the Fragrance World alt of the Moonlit, it's called the Moonlit Night. Now this is the alt of the Luminous Night, and I will do a separate review for this. I featured this, or I brought it up here because this is also part of the Dolce & Gabbana The One series, right? Now if you talk about the notes of this particular fragrance first, right, and you will notice that the EDT and EDP have got this exact same notes, which is basically right at the top. There is bergamot, there is basil, there is coriander, and in the heart notes there is basically cardamom, there is orange blossom, and there is ginger. And then in the base there is amber, there is cedar, and tobacco, right? So these are the primary ingredients of this particular fragrance. Now when you think about citrus elements like orange blossom or a bergamot, and then when you think about warm spices or sweet spices like cardamom, and if you think about ginger, and then in the base if you think about tobacco, amber, right, you might be thinking, what kind of fragrance is this? Where is this going? Now this can be described as a powdery, aromatic, tobacco, fruity, not fruity really, like a citrusy, aromatic, that kind of a fragrance. But a dominant scent profile on this one is the woody note of it. Okay, so let me do a couple of sprays. Now on this particular one, you can see that this sprayer is also metallic, and the sprayer is pretty good. This is the OG, and the spray is pretty good. Now, right when you kind of spray this particular fragrance, the scent profile opens up immediately. So like I said, the dominant scent profile on this one is the woody note, which is cedar wood, right? Now this is very well broken down into primarily 2 to 3 types, right? That right at the top you have the bergamot, you have ginger, you have cardamom note, while there is coriander and basil, but I think they play a very small character. They're right there at the background. The opening note is definitely a little bit of that citrus note, and a little bit of that orange blossom is something that you will get. The sweetness is bought by cardamom and all of that, and it continues for that way for about good 30 to 40 minutes time. Now during that point of time, it kind of projects between 2 feet or so at maximum. This is not a projection beast at that point of time. Okay, so the first 45 minutes to 1.5 hour, it's not really a projection beast. I would say about 45 minutes. After that, the magic starts happening. So what happens after 45 minutes is the second part, which is your, the dry down, which is your amber, your tobacco and cedar root starts coming up. Now there it brings up a very nice powdery kind of an effect. It brings up a very aromatic feeling. Now when you think about tobacco and when you think about amber, don't think about or generally the notes or the way our mind registers, especially tobacco note, is not a very sweet, it's not a very warm, welcoming kind of a note. It's kind of thought about as not a very pleasant note. But actually tobacco, when blended right, it can be a very sweet element, and that's exactly the case here. So the amber which is there, the cedar which is there, and the tobacco bring up a very sweet element to this particular fragrance. And when the sweetness starts to open up, the powdery effect starts to open up and the woody effect starts to open up. It starts projecting really, really nicely, and the projection is very good, very beautiful for good about 3 to 4 hours time. It's a really good scent. And that sweetness continues to be there. It will give you a feeling of fragrances that you have smelled, something like Armani Code Absolute, where there is that woody tone, there is that vanilla kind of a vibe, there is that powdery effect to it, right? That kind of scent profile is continuing to be there on this particular fragrance as well. The only difference is the opening part of it with that little bit of that citrus element and orange blossom bring about a nice slight freshness, slight sweetness to it. It's not a fresh day wear kind of a fragrance. It's definitely a evening wear kind of a fragrance, but the slight hints of that orange blossom, ginger and all of that bring up a nice sweet element to it, along with those supported notes of amber, tobacco and cedar, right? So on the whole, this is a beautiful fragrance, especially for date nights. It's a fantastic fragrance for evening. It's not a very out there beast kind of a performer. Like I said, you get about 1-2 feet of projection, but after the first 45 minutes time, it starts to open up with that powdery effect, and then it becomes an amazing fragrance. If you look at top 10 fragrances for men, this should definitely be in that list. If you look at top 3 or top 5 fragrances for date night, this will definitely make that list, along with Dior Homme Intense. So a lot of people like either Dior Homme Intense or they like Dolce & Gabbana, the one as the most popular date night fragrances, along with probably, Valentino Uomo could be another example, or another fragrance that is on that particular list. Now, while Dior Homme Intense is more iris, lavender, that kind of a fragrance, this is more woody, tobacco, amber, but a lot of that sweet elements, and makes up for a very, very warm, beautiful kind of a fragrance, especially this point of time, right? Now this kind of, I think, retails to about 4,500-5,000 rupees, and if this is something that is very expensive for you, or this is not something that you're looking to get, then you can definitely consider alternatives that are there. The most popular alternatives that we can talk about is the Dreamcatcher from the house of Pendora scents. Now if you take a side-by-side comparison and just look at it, it's like literally, they've done the exact copy paste of this particular bottle. The only difference is this probably is a little more square, and this has got a little bit of that, little bit of that shading, or probably a slide that you would kind of, look at it, which is there. But aside to that, everything else from the color tones, everything looks the same, right? So this is done well. Even in terms of its juice, this is a pretty good story as well. And I think this should be retailing it about 1,500 rupees approximately. This is a 100 ml bottle. And if you come do the sprays, and let's do that. For the longest time, this has been my go-to scent when you consider evening wears and all of that. Of course, now with the with the reviews happening, I've had more fragrances, but this is one of those fragrances that I wanted to have from a longer time, because Pendora or Latafa or Armaf were probably the only alt houses that were there for the longest time. Now with new entrants, the market is kind of also changing. Now when you put this particular fragrance on, what you would notice immediately is that the freshness which is there, which is coming from those citrus elements of orange blossom and bergamot and coriander and basil, that element is a little lighter on this particular oil, whereas it's a little more dominant on the OG. Aside to that, after the 20-25 minutes time, this particular fragrance also opens up and it starts projecting pretty well in terms of that powdery, woody, ambery, tobacco kind of fruit notes. All of that come up very, very well, and then it becomes really, really nice. Again, on this particular one, the projection is about 2 feet at maximum. It's more of a skin scent, after about the 1.5 hours time. It will be on your skin for about 3 hours, 4 hours time, I would say, and on apparels maybe close to about 5 hours. But at the 5 hour mark, it's mostly a skin scent. Not something that you would be able to smell from even from 1 feet, but somebody who's very up close to you, clinging on to you, would be able to smell, and it's a very nice scent that way, right? So the primary difference that you would notice with this particular one is, of course, the lightness at the citrus element, and the performance after about 3.5-4 hours time is a little low. But for 1500 rupees or so, you get a bottle that looks like really good to the OG, and the juice is also pretty good, and it's a very good value for money. So on this particular comparison, I would definitely say that this is definitely a good fragrance to have. In case you have it, you don't really need to upgrade, but you can definitely consider to continue to keep this till you exhaust this particular bottle. Now, the other entrant on this particular video is from the house of Albait, and this is called the One Men. Okay, now this is a very nice fragrance. I spoke about it in the reviews of Albait, the first part as well, and this is really nice. So now on this particular one, of course, this being a 2 ml sampler, I will kind of, it doesn't spray as very nicely as that one, but not bad. This is pretty good as well. Now this is also very nice. It kind of opens up with those citrus elements, all of that very nicely. That part of it is captured very well. The dry down on this one also is very nice. The scent profile overall is very good. Now this is a 75 ml bottle, and I think it's about 1600 rupees. Right, so this is a 100 ml, I think at about 1500 roughly. This is a 75 ml bottle, which is about 1600 approximately, like I said. And in this particular fragrance, the opening notes are the same. It's very close to the OG in that pattern, and then after the few minutes, it starts to go into the dry down, and the dry down is where it really starts projecting really well. Right now, on the whole, it's a very good fragrance and lasts longer than the Dreamcatcher. You will easily get about 5 hours or so, and on apparel you can get up to 6 hours as well. And the performance is good, projection is good, everything good about this particular fragrance. So Albait is definitely a very good Middle Eastern house. In case you want to consider getting a Dolce & Gabbana, the one, you can definitely consider Albait. What you don't get in this is basically the presentation, because here you get a top-notch presentation of this particular bottle. Here you get a very minimalistic looking blue colored fragrance, but the juice is really good. Then I have Muzna's. Okay, now in the Muzna's case, the scent profile, if I were to consider, this is done really well as well. In fact, I was so surprised by this that a lot of the Muzna house fragrances, when you compare, they have been very close in the contender of 1, 2 and 3 most times, right? And generally, if you compare it only with Indian houses, they're generally right at the top, and this is one of those kind of fragrances which is really done well. Now, right at the top, you get that nice opening of citrus element, those cardamom notes, those basil notes, there's ginger, all of that is something that you will smell very nicely. And after about 40-45 minutes time, this also transitions into that dry down. Now, when it goes into that dry down, this particular fragrance becomes a beast. If you have about 8 sprays or so, you will get that amazing powdery, tobacco, woody vibes for a long time, and really does it well. Now, where it kind of pips the Albait is that while Albait's also got the top notes very right, some notes are probably not as proficient or as open as the OG, and that is done well by Muzna's Alt. Now those notes are really captured well, and they are you can kind of sense that ginger, you can sense that cardamom note and the basil note very well. That orange blossom freshness is really nicely captured. After the 45th minute, when it starts to go into the dry down, that's where this becomes like a beast, like I said, and that woody notes is really loud and out there. Now what it does really well for when you compare it with Albait is, aside to the scent profile, the performance where it knocks everybody out. This can do at least say 5 to 6 hours time. This can be on your skin for 6 hours time, and on your apparel, I would say 12 hours easy, 16 hours I've got. And I'm not joking about this. 16 hours easily I've got on skin, beautifully nice smelling, you can kind of feel it. 12 hours is something that you will get absolutely easy on this particular fragrance, and that is something I can't believe, because even the OG doesn't perform like that. The other two alts don't perform, this one performs really well. Now the other element where this particular fragrance really shines is the cost factor. 50 ml, this comes to about 700 rupees plus shipping. 100 ml, this is 1200 rupees plus shipping, roughly, let's say 1300 rupees at maximum. So 1300 rupees, you're getting a fragrance which is 100 ml and is outdoing the OG and the alts as well. So if you're really looking to get a nice Dolce & Gabbana, the one alt, you can definitely consider the one from Muzna, because this is value for money. The scent profile is good, projection is good, performance is good. Quality of the juice is also very, very good. What it misses is just the presentation. Although the 100 mls come in a nice velvet box and all of that, it doesn't have this artistic appearance of the Middle Eastern house, which is definitely lacking. But aside to that, you get everything right on this particular fragrance. So if you are in India and you have access to get Muznas or Indian house alts, then I would definitely say and encourage you to take up the one from the Muzna as your best pick for Dolce & Gabbana, the one as an alt. But if not, if you are looking at a Middle Eastern house, then definitely you can consider one of them. Absolutely no frills. The only thing is you get a very good presentation here. You get an average presentation here. You get a very good juice quality and better performance. You get a slightly lower performance. This is no way of saying that this is bad at all. This is a very good performer. In case you have it, like I said, hold on to it and keep it until you finish, and then you can probably consider if there's any other alt. But aside to that, if you're looking at an alt for the Dolce & Gabbana, the one, you can definitely consider this. These are fantastic fragrances. All three of them are very good. My pick for the best one among all three of them is this. This from the house of Muzna Fragrances, called the one. Although this is a EDT fragrance, this will, or the EDT variant of the Dolce & Gabbana, this outdoes the OG and the EDP versions altogether. This, like I said, is an alt of the Luminous Night from the same series. It's a different flanker, and I will do a separate review for this to tell you how this particular fragrance is. And the presentation is really, really nice. A blue gold bottle, very, very beautiful one from Fragrance World. So if you like the video that I bring and the content that I bring, please hit the like button, subscribe and share. Do let me know your thoughts and and all of that. My voice kind of went down because I did this in a stretch, and that's okay. These are things that happen. But do let me know your feedback about the fragrance and your favorite date night fragrance, and look forward for more videos coming soon. You're watching the Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney. Take care. Bye now.